Hi there, it's Alexandra from the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel and blog, and I'm going to show you some beautiful garden ponds. Over the last few years, I've visited some wonderful private and public gardens, and so I'm picking out my favourite garden pond ideas to help inspire you for your garden pond. The simplest way to create a garden pond is simply to dig a hole in the ground and line it with heavy-duty plastic, and then cover that heavy-duty plastic up with rocks. It's important to make sure that you have a graded, almost like a beach, because some animals can't get out of a high-sided pond. You can also buy rigid, pre-formed plastic ponds, and those will also have beaches. The only problem with this kind of a pond is that it tends to be some of the larger ponds. I mean, if you dig a very small puddle type hole in your garden, it will dry out incredibly easily, and obviously that's not very good for wildlife. So really, these kind of natural DIY ponds are probably better in the slightly larger gardens. Stone or brick ponds can look very stylish. They can be contemporary or they can be classical. They can be small, they can be raised. You can really do anything you like with them. Once again, it is important to remember that wildlife need to be able to get in and also out of ponds. And the other important thing to remember about ponds, garden ponds, is that very small children, toddlers and babies, can drown in a few inches of water. So you really need to make sure that no child can get into your pond without your being aware of it. Raised ponds can be a very good way of making a feature in a smaller garden, because actually it does look good to have different levels. And one way of creating different levels in a small garden is to have a raised pond, raised beds, trees, shrubs of different heights, and so on. And of course, a raised pond would probably be slightly safer on the child front. We've got mini ponds in our garden, and I made one of them out of an oak barrel. Now, mini ponds aren't that easy to do. You do have to actually sort of look into all the issues, and I've done another video on that which you can see in the description below. But once again, the basic thing is to make sure that nothing can fall into the mini pond and then not be able to get out of it. And you also have to make sure that wildlife, for instance hedgehogs or birds or anything, have somewhere to perch, because obviously if a mini pond is very deep, they can't really access the water. Trend towards exotic themes in a garden, a pond can actually be quite a wonderful sort of jungly feel. And it might be cheating to show you the Oxford Botanic Gardens ponds, because obviously those are in their great big greenhouses. But if you have a greenhouse or a conservatory, why not have a mini pond and put jungly plants in and around it? Here is an outdoor tropical pond, and it's in quite a cool, temperate climate. It's at a house called Ardruda, which is quite high up in the mountains outside Melbourne. And as you can see, it has just a luscious, jungly feel to it. I think classically designed ponds look wonderful in lots of gardens, and I particularly like these ponds shown here. When I go round all the garden shows, like the RHS Chelsea Garden Show in Hampton Court, I see some great designs for ponds, and this one is from Chris Beardshaw's award-winning Best in Show Chelsea Garden, and it goes kind of right up to the wall of the garden, and I think that's quite interesting, although how easy it would be to either build or maintain, I'm not quite sure. And he's also using very vibrant colour in this pond. I think a piece of sculpture looks fantastic around a pond. It can really place the pond definitively in the garden, and I love this stag here at Ardruda. And this sculpture at Board Hill Gardens in Sussex is absolutely lovely. The two dishes fill up with water alternately, and when one dish gets full, it then drops over and the water falls out of it and the whole cycle starts again. So it's a very kind of peaceful, tranquil, constantly flowing water idea. And also at Board Hill in Sussex, there's this statue of a girl standing poised to dive into the pond, and that's quite a classical look for sculpture in ponds. If you have a pond in your garden, it's a lovely place to sit beside, so just think about where you might place your seating. If you have a larger pond, I think it works really well to add pots around the edge, and also whatever theme your pond has, whether it's classical or whether it's contemporary, you can echo that in the pots you use, and obviously it'll create much more, you've got more opportunities for planting. One of the wonderful things about ponds is seeing the reflections in them. Now, I'm not sure whether you can absolutely plan on those reflections when you decide where to put your pond, but it's certainly worth a try. Think about what's going to be reflected in that water. I particularly love this one in a private garden in Kent. It's an old barn conversion, and the pond was the old farm pond, and it just looks so beautiful. A few more practical points about ponds. You do need to have some oxygenating plants in there in order to keep the oxygen going. It's a good idea to have pond snails, specific pond snails, to clean the pond. You can use a pump. I don't use a pump in my mini pond, but pumps help to keep the water oxygenated and clean. And when you're adding water to a pond, try and use rainwater from a butt rather than tap water, because that is better for wildlife. But if you do have to use tap water, leave it to sit in a watering can for a day or so that the chemicals evaporate. If you've enjoyed this, please hit like, and then I'll know you'd like more inspiration for garden design elements. If you haven't subscribed to the Middlesized Garden YouTube channel, we upload on Saturdays with tips, ideas and inspiration, expert interviews, garden visits, and everything for people whose gardens are smaller than an acre. So thank you for watching. Goodbye.